Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all for this FDP of Holistic Development through Yoga. We have with us today's resource person, Dr. Shamala, psychiatrist, who has 2 decades of experience in the profession. We welcome you all, ma'am. We welcome you once again for this program. I hope
Thank you.
everyone going to take away more from this program. Once again, I welcome you all for this program. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
So I welcome you all for this, wonderful, teaching, Buddha's teaching about this eightfold path. In life, somehow nobody is, very happy. We can consider a beggar and we can consider a very rich person. Both of them are their own suffering in life. During our childhood days, we always feel like, maybe if we grow up, like we will be happy. But once we grow up, then we'll feel like, maybe once we settle down in life, we will be happy. And then once we settle down, then what happens? We'll feel, okay, no, maybe like, after retirement, everything will be settling, we can be happy. But after, being, getting retired also, there will be like, nobody is happy. But where it is going wrong is the question. So somehow nobody is happy, but everybody is trying their level best to become happy. So basically everybody is, running after so many things. Once we are running, every day we are busy and every day we are doing something or the other. Excuse me. We are, getting into new jobs. We are, getting qualified. We are studying, or we are, getting into relationship. We are getting into so many, entertainment groups. But still somewhere, none of us are really happy all the time. It is not that we are totally unhappy. There are moments of happiness. That is a hope that, we can always be happy. But unfortunately, nobody is happy all the time. There is few moments of happiness in everybody's life. Maybe in a student's life, for example, he might get good marks at that moment, he is happy. But that is gone within 1 or 2 days, or maybe within 1 month. That happiness which he got because of, successful in his career, in his studies, that moment will be gone. And again, some other problem is coming. And again, like, there might be few moments of happiness, but the basal level, there will be suffering for everybody. So this is the reason why Gautama Buddha gave us a method by which we can achieve what is called as joyful state, a constant happiness, a constant blissful state. So for this, Gautam Buddha has given 4 noble truths. So the 4 noble truths are, number 1 is, he says, life is a suffering. So this is the noble truth you need to understand, that whatever you achieve, whether you succeed in career or whether you fail in career, you might succeed in relationship or you might fail in relationship, whatever is the state, but still, as long as we are alive, life is going to be a suffering. So this is the first noble truth which Gautam Buddha gave us. The second noble truth is, desire is the main cause of suffering. As long as the desire is there, suffering continues and continues and continues. So this is the second noble truth. And the third noble truth is, by following eightfold path which Buddha has given, one can come out of desire and one can come out of suffering. So this is the third noble truth. And the fourth noble truth Buddha has given is nirvana. Nirvana or samadhi is the end of suffering. So these are the four noble truths which both Buddha has given. So Buddha's teaching is amazing. So in these four noble truths, if we can understand, definitely we can do something about our life. Otherwise, nothing can be done. We might be getting up in the morning and we might prepare ourselves for going for the job. We might finish doing our job and again go back home. And again, go for sleep and get up and come back. So this continues life after life. The suffering continues life after life. So to come out of this suffering, to lead a very happy, joyful, and a blissful life, Gautam Buddha has given eightfold path. If one can follow this eightfold path with sincerity, with total dedication, and with totality, definitely every human being, whether he is a beggar, whether he is a rich person, whether he is educated, whether he is not educated, all of them have the possibility to come out of this suffering and lead a very joyful and blissful life. So what are these eight fold of, Buddha's teaching, eight path fold? The number one right is right speech. Buddha speaks about, right speech. The second one is right morality, right intention, right livelihood, right effort, right view, right mindfulness, and right samadhi. These are the 8 steps in which, if we follow with totality, definitely 100% we can lead a very joyful life. It sounds simple, but it is quite difficult to follow. But if you follow this, if we put constant effort towards this eightfold path of Buddha's teaching, definitely, gradually, we will start experiencing total joy in life, irrespective of our position, irrespective of our financial condition, irrespective of where we are, what we are doing, whether we are successful or even if we are a failure person, still we can achieve this inner joy. So friends, let us consider each and every step of this eightfold path now. Now, first one is right speech. The moment Buddha says right, we always think it is against wrong. It is not so. It is not against wrong. Rather, right means it is just balanced. It is centered. It is harmonious with the universe. So when we get in tune with the universe, naturally, we will become more joyful. And that is what Buddha calls, and that is what Osho calls as, rightfulness. So coming to the right speech, what we need to understand is, whenever we speak, we have to speak, honestly. What we sometimes do is, we will be speaking, but we will be speaking somebody's experience. The moment we speak about somebody's experience, that means we are not authentic about what we are speaking. Buddha says, follow right speech, and by following right speech, definitely you can reach samadhi. That is, whenever you're speaking, be real, be honest, be authentic. It means when you're getting angry, when you're feeling depressed, tell you're feeling depressed. But usually what we do is we will be suffering inside, but we portray ourselves to the whole world as a very happy person. Or on the other hand, whenever we will be boiling inside with anger, but we will be portraying ourselves as a very calm person. Buddha says, if at all you want to come out of your suffering, first step is you need to follow right speech. Right speech is speaking from your own experience. It doesn't matter if you have not experienced everything in life. Whatever little you have experienced, speak about only your own experience and not about somebody else borrowed knowledge. Usually what happens in all the religions, there are so many fictitious things. Like if you die today, tomorrow you will be in heaven. If you have done good in this life, you will go to heaven, or else you will go to hell. In some religions, it is told that, if you die, you might enter into 7 hell or 7 heaven. Who has seen this? Have you really seen it? If you have seen it, fine. But if it has not become part of your experience, then it is better not to speak about it. Once it becomes your own reality, then you speak. Absolutely no problem. So if you want to follow right speech, speak about truth. That is, always speak truth, always speak from your experience, and speak facts and not fictitious things. We are experts in speaking fictitious things. If the problem is this much, we are expert in making it very big and with our own imagination, and we build stories around a small fact, and we try to tell the imaginary things. Buddha says simple, speak the real thing, speak honestly, be very authentic in your speech, don't be fictitious. To learn what to speak, we take 2 years, but lifetime is required to learn what not to speak. So we need to understand what not to speak. Speaking, everybody does in their own, according to their own experience, according to their own knowledge. But to learn not to speak, what not to speak is most important. In fact, if we can follow what is called silence, definitely our speech is going to be more powerful. Buddha, Osho, Mahavira, and Jesus, all these enlightened persons, they used to go to silence for months together, years together. And they used to gain that experience. And after the silence, whatever they speak, that used to become like diamonds. That used to be getting recorded by many people around them. That is because their speech is followed by silence. Silence has so much of power within itself. So it is better to go into silence every now and then. So friends, if we can follow this right speech, definitely we will be moving towards joyfulness. Right speech is speaking your own experience, only your experience, speaking real, about the reality, not about your own stories, speaking authentic, speaking from your heart. This is called right speech. Now, coming to the next path, that is right morality. Morality, the moment I say morality, we think that, whatever society has given, that is the right morality. Become a, good citizen, then you're following the right morality. The right morality which Buddha talks is totally different from what the society has given. Society calls you a good citizen when maybe after you have paid your income tax, or maybe after you followed some norms, maybe about your tradition, about your culture. the society is going to name you as a good citizen. But this is not the right morality. Whatever that comes from external things are not the right morality. What comes from within is the right morality. Conscience that is given by the society, that how we have to behave, how we have to, talk, how we have to, respect the elderly people. Yes, it is all good. But then the most important thing is inner morality. So Buddha says when the morality comes from external things, it is not the right morality. Maybe you will be called as a good citizen. That is totally different. That can never take you out of your suffering. The only way in which you can come out of suffering is through consciousness and not through conscience. Conscience is given by the society, and it is based on fear and greed. It is because of their own fear, because of their own greed, the politicians, the priests, they have given a set of rules to be followed in the society. But by following those many rules, we can just be called as a good citizen. But if we want to come out of this life and death cycle, if we want to come out of this total suffering, and if we want to lead a joyful life, then we need to follow our inner morality, that is consciousness. So this inner consciousness, or when the morality comes from inner consciousness, that is called right morality. For example, a person who is born in a Jain family, he will be told that, don't eat meat. Even for the children, small children, it is told that, by their parents and by society, you belong to a Jain community, so you should not eat meat. And that child will follow that throughout his lifetime. This information has come from external. So this cannot give the child, even if when he becomes old, he cannot have peace of mind or contentment, or he cannot experience blissful state just by following vegetarianism. What Buddha says is, if you really want to follow, then follow what is called as inner morality. Inner morality comes from your deep inner consciousness. So when you become conscious, automatically, maybe someday you will start feeling, why should I, just for the taste of it, why should I kill an animal? At that moment, because of your higher consciousness, because of your sensitivity, because of your own understanding, you might, one day decide, okay, let me not eat non-veg or meat. That is right morality, and not what is given by the society, by your caste, or by your community. So this is about right morality. The next step is right intention. Now, whatever work we do, always we have some intention behind it. We always feel like, if I have to work, I have to get the salary. If I have to do this, if I have to get into this relationship, that person has to give me all these things. Only then I'll get into a relationship. So this is how we are. Our intentions are always goal oriented. It is always desire oriented. Buddha says the moment it is desire oriented, or the moment it is goal oriented, it can only give you frustration. Because whenever it is goal oriented, or whenever it is desire oriented, naturally there will be expectations. So once there is expectation, definitely there will be failures, and there will be frustration, and there will be suffering. Buddha says right intention is no intention. Whenever you have intention, you will be in intention. So whenever you are having intentions of your own, definitely you're going to suffer throughout your lifetime. So Buddha says, don't have any intention. Whenever you are putting your heart and soul into your work, that is in front of you at this very moment, when you start living moment to moment with totality and sincerity, automatically universe will start flowing through you and your intentions will be fulfilled even without asking. So, what is the need for asking? There is absolutely no need for having your own intention. Definitely, if you're doing all your work with total sincerity and with total energy, naturally, universe will start flowing through you and good things will start coming in life. So Buddha says, have no intentions. Having no intention is the right intention. So this is the third, step towards this eightfold path. Now, the fourth one is right livelihood. So the moment we say livelihood, what we think is we need to have, AC house, only then I'll be happy. If I have, nice dresses, only I'll be happy. If I'm able to go abroad, only then I'll be happy. If I pass in this exam, only then I'll be happy. Or if this many people get admitted in my college, I will be happy. So we have complicated our livelihoods. So that is why we suffer. Buddha says, if you want to lead a joyful life, lead a right livelihood. What is right livelihood? Right livelihood is life based on basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, and good relationship. If you have these four things, and if your life is based upon these four things, naturally you can be happy. But on the other hand, what we do is we unnecessarily complicate our, life by saying, we will be running after certain things and thinking that if we get that, we will be happy. The moment you have your own life, your own goals, what we do is we will be going towards that. The moment we start moving towards that goal, the goal, we know that we will be reaching that goal. Immediately, that goal will start losing its charm. Again, we'll set a different goal in life. So like this, we keep on running and running and running throughout our lifetime. Buddha says, learn to live a right livelihood first. Right livelihood is if you have, basic needs, that is more than sufficient. Clothing, shelter, food, and a good relationship. Love is required to enrich our soul. So if we have this, we can be leading a very happy life. So this is about right livelihood. Now the next step is right effort. Right effort is sometimes we are very lazy. We don't work at all. And sometimes we are overworking. We are tiring ourselves. Buddha says you neither become very lazy nor, you overwork. Maintain a balance between the two. And your effort has to be effortless, it has to be joyful, and it has to be playful. So whenever you're putting any effort towards your work or towards your family, let that effort be joyful, let that effort be playful, let that effort be effortless and easy. So once we start putting our effort in this direction, definitely it becomes right effort and we start moving towards divinity, towards samadhi. So this is about right effort. Now, next step is right view. What is right view? whenever we are speaking with somebody, what happens in our brain? We keep judging about that person. We will have preconceived ideas about that person. That person is a good person, or that person is a bad person. He is a cheater. He has cheated in the past so many people. Or, we will be doubting what he is saying, whether it is true or not. We will be having our own judgments when we are listening to somebody. We'll be having our own opinions. We'll be having our own preconceived ideas. We'll be having our own beliefs whenever we are talking with somebody. Buddha says, when you're talking with somebody, or when you're listening to somebody, listen as nobody, without any opinions, without any judgment, without any expectation, without any beliefs. Unfortunately, right from our childhood days, our parents, relatives, teachers, and society have given so many beliefs. And because of these beliefs, whenever we are talking with a particular person, we have these beliefs coming into our mind, and we start analyzing the other person. We start having our own opinions about the other person. The moment we have opinions and beliefs in ourselves, we will be moving away from our inner being, and we will be leading a suffering life throughout. So if at all you decide to come out of this, suffering, if you want to come out of this, birth and death cycle, then you need to follow what is called as right view. That is, you need to learn to listen to the other person as nobody. So right view is, listening to the other person without any expectation, without any opinion, without judging, without preconceived ideas, without any belief. Children are so beautiful. That is why there is no child who is not beautiful. The reason is, children then don't have still, so much of beliefs, so much of preconceived ideas. They'll be living moment to moment. So if we can live like a child, moment to moment, we might think, oh, if we live as nobody, can we get the answers when we want? Definitely you can get powerful answers if you live like how Buddha has told, right? If we can follow right view. So this is about the 6th step. The 7th step is right mindfulness. If we can follow right mindfulness, we can be very joyful all the time. Whatever is given to us is whatever is needed for our growth. So accept every moment as it is. Once we accept every moment as it is, and when we start doing each and every activity with total mindfulness, definitely we can start moving towards, samadhi. So how to do this mindfulness? So mindfulness is start becoming aware of, whatever you're touching, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're seeing, whatever you're tasting, whatever you're smelling, and become conscious of your breath every moment. Definitely, you will start becoming mindful moment to moment. This mindfulness has to happen during all the activities, like while walking, eating, working, talking, okay, or even while cooking. This, if we can extend this mindfulness throughout the day, from morning till we sleep, then this mindfulness extends even during sleep time. So once that happens, that is called right mindfulness. So right mindfulness is living consciously during all the activities. So once we learn to, live with total mindfulness, that is, being alert, awake, and aware and watchful during all the activities, definitely we can reach right mindfulness, which is the seventh step of eightfold path of Buddha's teaching. Now, the final one is right samadhi. Right samadhi is the byproduct of all the 7 steps. Right samadhi happens when the right mindfulness spreads throughout the day and night for 24 hours without any effort, naturally. Then right samadhi happens. Once right samadhi happens, there will be so much of inner joy. There is so much of ecstasy within. There will be so much of blissfulness. And this blissfulness, happiness, and joy that comes out as the byproduct of following eightfold path is going to be constant, and it will not be dependent on external things. But now what is happening? Our happiness is totally getting dependent on external things. If somebody praises, we feel happy. If somebody criticizes, immediately there will be a sorrow. If we succeed, we get momentarily happiness. If we don't succeed, the person will become very depressed. So if you want to come out of this suffering, then if you can follow eightfold path of Buddha, definitely we will be able to come out of this suffering, and we will be able to understand and live 4 noble truths. So this is about Buddha's eightfold path. So friends, hope, whatever I have explained, you've understood. And I just hope, it was simple enough so that everybody could follow it. Any questions? Hello?
Hello, excuse me, madam. This is Murlidhar, madam.
Tell me, Murlidhar.
Madam, you have told that eightfold path.
Yes.
Sometimes what it will happen means, sir, silent, sir. So most of the time we might be following this eightfold paths, but the surrounding people who are there with us, they also want to follow, no, madam. If they are not following, they think us as a mad person.
See, basically, this is something which you will be doing inside. What you're saying is correct, Murli. If everybody else around you is following, it is beautiful. But then, you might be having a small group of people who are following it. But it is not that your life is limited only to this small group of people. You will be having occasions wherein you need to be with the people who are not following also. But it is a challenge, rather it is a testing time wherein you can actually test yourself that whatever you're following, are you really following it? Number one. And whatever you're following, are you really put it into practice? So that is how you will learn. So this entire spirituality is about ourselves. Okay, first thing is we need to work on ourselves. It is not about changing others. It is about changing ourselves. See, Buddha first, he put effort so that he can transform himself. And afterwards, when he spoke, there were so many people. It is almost so many thousands of years since Buddha was born, but still there are people who are following him. The reason is he got transformed first. And then, there were so many followers for him, so many disciples for him. But the first step is he followed everything. He worked on himself. He worked on his anger. He worked on his greed. He worked on his desires. He worked on his jealousiness. He worked on his possessiveness. So only after he worked on himself and only after he reached all these righteous things, then he started teaching others. And people automatically were getting transformed. So the first step is, let us get transformed first. So what you're telling is, like, when you're with the other people, you might look little odd, but that is okay if you're looking odd. What is wrong in looking odd? And every human being is unique, irrespective of, even if he is not following this eightfold path, still he is unique, isn't it? So let us put our heart and soul into following these 8 paths. And automatically, when you're following these 8 paths, your life will become more easier and easier. It will become more simpler, and it will become more joyful, isn't it?
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam.
Ma'am, one question from my side. Hello.
Tell me, madam.
Yeah, ma'am. My question is, what is the purpose of doing this eightfold path that's of Buddha, which you have told? Like, it will come in the mind of a person. Why we should follow it? What I'll gain from that?
Okay, that's a good question. See, basically, like, right from our childhood days till now, we are doing so many things continuously, isn't it? We were going to school, and then we passed out from school, then we were going to college, and from college we have got into some job, and we have got into so many relationship, but somewhere we still having, discontentment in life. Whatever we are doing, we are still feel like, okay, tomorrow I might get happiness. And tomorrow comes again, you think, okay, tomorrow I might be more happy. So if we deeply observe our life, there is no constant happiness in life. Happiness is in bits and pieces. If you are happy with these bits and pieces of happiness and basal level, sorrow in your life, there is no need to follow eightfold path. But if you want to lead a joyful life, if you want to lead a blissful life, then it is necessary to follow this Buddha's eightfold path. It is not that you have to follow only Buddha's eightfold path. There are so many mystics, so many enlightened masters who have given so many other paths. So you can choose whichever path is closer to your heart, whichever you feel is practical to put it into your life. So Buddha's eightfold path is one of the ways of many ways to reach that joyful state. Ma'am, today, like, you go and talk with a beggar. The beggar will tell, I have this many problems. Somehow, like, every day is becoming a struggle. Okay. And you go and talk with a middle class person, he also says, like, my life is becoming, I have to get up in the morning, I have to go for work, whatever I do, I'm not able to reach my goal. I'm not able to, get happiness. Whatever happiness they get is just, bits and pieces here and there, and that too from the external things. So if we want to lead a joyful life, and if we want to lead a happy life, then we can follow eightfold path of Buddha. And there is no rule that you have to follow only eightfold path of Buddha. So this is one way which is being told. No, so there are so many paths, like, Bhakti Marg is there, Karma Yoga is there. So there are so many paths which can lead to the same destination, that is Samadhi. Hope it is clear for you.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, welcome.
Madam, good morning, madam.
Good morning.
Madam, this is Murli Krishna, madam.
Tell me, Murli Krishna.
So, madam, I have one small doubt, madam. You told that Buddha, not you, madam. Buddha told that satisfy with the basic needs. Satisfy with basic needs, madam. If you satisfy with the basic needs, how growth can take place in future, madam?
See, it is not that only one step he has told to follow. He has given 8 steps. One of the step is to live on based on your basic needs. But just living on your basic needs doesn't mean that, you can attain, Samadhi or the joyful state. Along with leading a life which is based on basic needs, you also have to follow right speech, right morality, right, intention. All these things has to be followed, and you need to start living right, with right mindfulness also. So once we start following everything, then it becomes joyful. For example, there are so many people who are very poor, whose life is based on, basic needs only. It doesn't mean that, you have to go and live in the hut with, with a very small shelter or something. It is just that if you have, basic needs like clothing, shelter, and, food, and if you have good relationship, you can be contented. And existence can give you more than what you want. It, see, existence, universe is full of abundance. So when you are following the universe law, naturally, like, abundance is going to flow through you. So as a byproduct, you might get, so many things in addition to your basic needs. That is totally different. But if you're saying, no, I cannot be satisfied with this basic needs at all. I want that, I want this. And you're always, goal orientedly, you're, if I get that, I will be happy. If I don't get that, I will not be happy. If you're thinking like that, and if you're losing out this precious moment, then what happens? You're not living in the present moment. Then what happens? Suffering is going to be there lifelong. So instead of that, be happy if you have the basic needs, and start working on how you can be mindful throughout the day, and how you can implement right, speech, right morality into your life. Once you start implementing all these things, for all you know, like, you might be still be leading a very rich life. Existence might be giving you so much, right? So,
Yes.
but that happens as a byproduct. So for some people, they might be destined to have a very rich life, in spite of them, leading a right livelihood. There are some people might be leading a mediocre life, but is irrespective of what happens externally, still they can be very joyful inside. So that is the answer.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Welcome.
Hello, madam.
Heli Satya.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam, I am a sort of a yes person.
Okay.
ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು yes ಅಂದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. Is it right or wrong, madam?
See, saying yes or wrong, a person cannot be, it cannot be decided on yes or no. So just because a person says no, that doesn't mean that, he's bad. Just because a person says yes, it doesn't mean that he is right. So the rightfulness is following these eightfold path. That is, just by saying yes unconsciously, it doesn't mean anything. It is not bringing any inner transformation. Maybe by saying yes, maybe you can get certain work done easily. That is outside. So because of that, maybe momentarily you might get happiness. Or, by saying yes all the time, maybe you get momentary unhappiness also. So this saying yes externally has nothing to do with the inner, transformation. If we really have to if we are really working towards inner transformation, then that S has to come out of our inner being, out of our inner consciousness. So sometimes what happens, we will be saying yes out of conscience. Somebody has told, so maybe we have read somewhere that if we say yes, something good will happen. So we start saying yes for everything. Or somebody might have told, like, you should not say no for anything. So you might be following those, dictums or dogmas or philosophy, or some elderly people might have advised like that. So because of that, yes, you might get some good results externally, but again, it is just momentarily. So if we want to go deeper in ourselves, if we want to transform ourselves, if we want to move towards samadhi, then we need to work more on these eightfold paths. Then each and everything, when we follow it, when we implement in our life, when it becomes our own experience, then consciousness will be improving. moment to moment, consciousness will be improving. And out of that consciousness, if yes comes, that is very beautiful. Satya, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು?
Madam,
ಹಾ ಹೇಳಿ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ma'am, it's me, Shashikala. So I'll become emotional very soon, ma'am. It's very difficult for me to control.
Okay.
How I have to go instead of that, ma'am.
Emotional in the sense,
For simple thing
examples?
Yeah, for simple thing also, I'll become very emotional. If anybody raise a voice on me, I cannot tolerate. I'll get emotional. For simple reasons also, if I watch any like events and everything like which is not favorable, so I'll become very emotional.
Emotional
Immediately.
in the sense, according to you,
Sometimes it will be very embarrassing.
you cry
in
a
front of
lot?
everybody.
You cry easily?
Cry, yes, automatically the tears fall from my eyes. Yeah, that's.
Okay.
And it will make me not to speak. Like I will be very emotional, so it's very difficult for me to speak that time. Yeah.
Okay. So this happens, becoming too much emotional happens because of prolonged, suppressed emotions. So suppressed emotions in the sense, so many times what happens, we would have got angry on somebody, we wouldn't have shown it. At that time, we would have just swallowed inside. Got it?
Okay.
So when that happens over a period of time, usually like person becomes very emotional, number one, or it could be like, genetic pattern could be like that. Maybe your mother or father might be very emotional. That trait also, if you're carrying, that also will make you a emotional person. But if that is, hindering your life, then you need to work on that. So how to work on that is, there is something called as completion process. So completion process is, hope if I can take another 10 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So there is something called as very, very powerful technique called as completion process. So in completion process, what we tell is, you need to list out the incident in which you got angry, in which you got emotional like this, in the past, maybe 1 week back, 1 month back, 3 months back, like that. There will be so many incidents wherein you become very emotional and you've got tears in your eyes when you're talking with somebody, and you've got angry also when you were talking. So make a list of incidents that has hurt you very badly, and that has caused tears in your eyes, and that has caused emotional in you. And afterwards, what you need to do is, there is something called as whole brain posture. Okay, whole brain posture is, you need to hold your arms like this, okay, then clasp it downwards, okay, and then turn it like this. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold your arms like this. Okay, this is called whole brain posture. Okay, so the first step is cross your palms, then clasp it downwards like this, and then turn it like this and hold it in front of your heart. Okay, so this is called whole brain posture because our left palm is related to our right brain, and right palm is related to our left brain. So when we interlock like this and turn it like this, what happens is our entire brain will get activated. So what you need to do is, after making the list of incidents that has hurt you, what you do is, you sit silently in a room separately and start doing this technique. Okay, it is, first thing is you're holding it like this, you're keeping your eyes closed, and take one incident that has caused you too much of emotion in you, and that has really made you, that has really hurt you very badly. Think of that incident, and if the incident is of this size, multiply it many times, exaggerate that incident so that you get that emotion again. You become emotional again, and tears starts flowing in your eyes when you're remembering that incident. And it is good if your tears starts flowing while doing this technique. Okay, so the first step in this technique is, you need to keep your palm in whole brain posture, and then you have to keep your eyes closed, And then you need to visualize the past incident which has hurt you very badly. And you need to magnify that emotion. If you were feeling angry, if the anger was this much, then you need to magnify that anger many times. And you need to take that incident in your mind to the worst possible situation. Got it?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and you need to express all your emotions in your mind. Okay. For example, say, like, when the tears were flowing on that day, like, you were actually angry on that person. Now you exaggerate that anger and you can hit that person, you can kill that person, you can spit on that person, you can use vulgar language in your mind, but complete that emotion. Okay, ma'am, you're understanding. I hope you're understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your mind, what you need to do is close your eyes, think of a situation wherein you got too much emotional, and then exaggerate it and take that incident to the worst possible situation. And whatever you wanted to do on that, do it right now during this process. So there's some sound coming. Fine. So once you start doing this, what happens is you will get lot of anger, lot of tears comes. Allow that tears, let it overflow. Okay. If anger is coming, let it come. Okay. So this process might last for 10 minutes or something like that. And you need to repeat the same incident again and again. You need to do this technique again and again. So when you're doing for the same incident again and again, what happens is next time when you're doing the same technique for the same incident, anger would have come down a little bit. Got it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If you go on doing this technique every day before going to sleep, at least 3 incidents, if you're able to complete it, then what happens? Over a period of time, you become a stronger person and you become a more peaceful person. And you will be able to maintain that calmness even if something is going wrong in front of you. But this has to be done on a daily basis. Okay, at least 3 incidents you try to, relive and complete it. Exaggerate that emotion, take it to the worst possible situation. Okay, and this has to be repeated until you're getting the picture of worst possible situation in front of your mind, but still you're not getting affected because of it. Okay. Until then, you need to keep on repeating it. So sometimes it happens just by, doing this completion process once or twice itself, you will attain a state wherein you can just, witness or become watchful about what is happening in your mind. But sometimes it happens maybe after 10 or 20 sessions. But 100% it happens. This has been taught to so many patients, and all of them, almost everybody, whoever has followed, has got wonderful results. And it is there even in YouTube. You can watch it. And it is there in Google also, completion process. You can follow this method, and it's a very, very powerful technique. But only thing is, like, you need to follow it on a daily basis. Maybe you can start practicing it from today onwards. And if you're finding it difficult, you can contact me. I'll help you out.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody would like to ask ma'am questions? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Babu sir?
Madam, good morning. Madam?
Heli Satya.
Madam, ಈಗ regular routine ಹೇಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು? When we wanted to make it as a regular routine, we can adopt this and all.
The ideal thing is, like, if you can do 1 hour meditation in a day, okay, every day, if you can do 1 hour meditation, it is very good. And following that, you need to make your life comparatively more simpler. There is no point in running after something, you know, day in and day out. So rather than that, we can simplify our life. And if we can do 1 hour
Okay.
meditation and probably half an hour to 40 minutes of physical exercise, that followed by whatever you're doing, if that happens,
Okay.
life will become more easy.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Welcome, welcome. Anybody has any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, Satya, for giving an opportunity to speak about Eightfold Path of Buddha's teaching. And I thank ma'am for giving this opportunity. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I would like to thank you for this wonderful program for our staff members. And I think everyone has listened and everyone is enjoying. And this is the second time again. That's why we want to, because it's very interesting. So what is in the life you have to follow and everything, all these steps, what you have mentioned, everything, definitely everyone has to follow this to be peaceful in our life. Thank you so much, ma'am. Once again, you have come and enlightened us with all these programs and everything, ma'am. Now over to Satya, sir, for a vote of thanks.
Behalf of all the management and behalf of all the management and the principal and the staff, I would like to thank you, Dr. Shamala madam, and my beloved sir, Mr. Mohan sir. I thank you for Mohan also.
Sure, I'll convey it.
Is there Mohan?
Is there?
Yes, madam. Thank you, Mr. Mohan, and thank you, Dr. Shamala, for this wonderful, unforgettable speech. And regularly we will able to obey you and we have the college students and staff. And a special thanks to our Shashikala madam for creating this opportunity. Thank you very much, madam. We wish you have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.